Ooh, and we're live. Here we
Ready to
go.
rock? Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
We were just discussing what we're going to do today, right? What we're
Yeah.
going to get into. And
Meeting the moment.
it seemed, right, you brought up Israel-Palestine and really like what it's made of, right? Why conflicts don't get resolved. And
Mhm.
a guy, wrote that in 2006? You know, you can just jump in anytime you want if you want to do the talking. But what you told me was this guy basically predicted all this, said, here's the pieces. If they're not worked out, here's what's going to happen. And then it went ahead and happened. And stuff like that, while it can be really hard to digest, I think is really important. And what I shared with you right before we decided to just start recording was that, like, that's where my heart is as well, in terms of developing the capacity to diagnose something on a very deep level. And to be able to say, like, look, you're heading in this direction. You may not see that this is happening, but if this or this isn't dealt with, this is what you're going to get. And if this and this is dealt with, here's the next problem you're going to meet. And then you have to deal with that one, and it is a part of an unfolding and a certain way of conflict resolution, right? I mean, it's incredibly important. And so I'm always down to talk about that stuff, right? And then we started talking about, like, I'm always wanting to bring you into a little bit more of what's going on in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine, because I do believe that Ukraine right now is the tip of the spear of the democratic world, and Russia, who has now aligned themselves and is using North Korean soldiers, Chinese mercenaries from all over that area. They have their own coalitions, right? And they have nuclear weapons and so on. Like, they're not a weak coalition, but they are at the same time. And what's so frustrating to me, but the tide is turning, so it's very exciting, is that, NATO, the world's greatest defensive alliance, has been, like, totally asleep at the wheel, and then our White House is doing some other stuff that I'm going to let somebody else say on the YouTube video. And
the White House, which we love,
can't get enough of it.
Which we love.
Yeah. Got to get rid of that East Wing. Got to put in that ballroom.
Put in that bunker. He's making a bunker, dude.
I heard about that. Yeah.
He's definitely making a bunker.
Right.
Why wouldn't he?
Big donations. It's all good. So
yeah,
I want to take a look at it right now, if we can, if this is the direction we're going in. And then you mentioned Sudan. And then I thought, oh gosh, well, you know what? There's revolutions going on in Britain right now, in France. It's like, you can see, like, there's a lot. Gen Z just destroyed, was it Nepal, where they, like, they burned down all the buildings? Like, there is a ton of unrest that's going out there. And while this is happening, right, the evil empire is knocking at NATO's door, the greatest defensive alliance that democracy has ever seen, that the world has ever seen. And he's testing us left and right, and we are failing over and over and over again. And it's a huge bummer. And what it does is it becomes a giant psyop where people start to lose faith in the system. And that's the whole point. The whole point is to poison people's minds enough that they can start to fall for certain propaganda, and where might makes right, and so on. But the beautiful thing, and this is where I'm smiling, is the Russian army is a fucking wreck. It's a mess. And they're riding donkeys and horses into battle, scooters. If they bring in any armored infantry, Ukraine has developed, the latest in drone tech, the leading like military information and, like, how to do war. They're number one, and they're just annihilating them. It's a fucking meat grinder. The average time a Russian soldier spends on the front line from the time that they're conscripted or forced to sign up and sent out there is 12 days. They lose thousands every week, and they've lost millions already throughout the war the last 3 to 4 years. Now, what's changing? You open to this, hearing a little bit about this?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the tip of the democracy.
Quick, from our first stream, shout out to my buddy Brian. He was listening. He was like, listen to the episode. It's great. However, Russia, Ukraine is not even close to as brutal as World War I.
Okay.
As you say, he's like, it's bad, but, like, trench warfare of World War I was, like, the worst of humanity.
So, like, I'm never going to disagree with that. Okay? Like, but at the same time, okay.
Yeah. You would just say it's just like nothing's worse than that.
I would love to, actually find somebody that can talk about the comparison between the two,
Mhm.
because I've listened enough Dan Carlin to think that I'm somewhat of informed,
I got a great historian. He's a political science historian
Mhm,
who talks about World War One and the details of World War One.
mhm,
Like really, he's a great. He's like a great storyteller. He like, keeps it humorous.
mhm.
Roy Casagranda is his name.
The name's familiar. Okay.
Um,
Put him on the docket.
he talks about Ukraine. Do you want to hear him talk about Ukraine?
Yeah, if you have a good video, I'd watch that, and I want to share one or two with you. Mine aren't so long, right? But it catches you up, right? Because what I was getting at before we got sidetracked there was that um, Russia is just they have no strategy, and they've been committing. Their strategy has been to send rockets into kindergartens, into apartment
Yeah,
complexes, and they've taken out they commit war crime after war crime. They're just
yeah.
legitimate terrorists, and Ukraine has held back for like 3 years.
Hmm.
Like they have not committed war crimes. They haven't gone after the infrastructure, only military positions. And in the last 3 months, they changed their strategy, and they have been sending drone after drone after drone at Russia's oil manufacturing plants. Gasoline is their number one product, like basically just
Hmm.
taking out all of their supply lines, all of their refineries, and wiping it out. And it's working. So Russia's economy is now collapsing. Like people are out of gas. People don't have enough gas to drive to work. They can't, and now Ukraine is technically committing war crimes because they're saying, look, we held out for 3 years, and they, first of all, in 3 years, Russia has only taken 1%.
Yeah.
It's amazing. They were supposed to roll over them, right? And so, like, the Russian army is demoralized, out of weapons. They're raiding the dead. They don't even pick up the dead. So there's just Russian bodies freaking everywhere. I'm not saying that the Ukraine army doesn't have problems. They do,
Hmm.
but they are fine tuned. They have the moral spirit. Like they're only hanging in more
Yeah.
and more and more. And it's like, it's pretty cool because only recently has the tide just started to turn where you see that, like, in my opinion, like if I was a betting man, I would put every single penny I own on Russia has already been defeated. It's only a matter of time now. And I want to show you a video, sort of just like the most updated video that from a guy named Jake Bro, who I like the way he does it. He
Okay.
kind of covers all the ground.
Can you send me the link
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I
I'll
can get
send
the
it to you
direct
now.
video?
So you want to start with this?
Yes.
All right. Let's take a look here. Anything else on your mind for today?
No, I'm just like thinking more and more about as things are ramping up here in the United States. I think we're in the middle of, I think about this quote. I'm quoting Lenin for those out there who are reactionary. Like I've had experiences with people by me bringing up certain historical figures and just discussing them from like a neutral lens and
Mhm.
not coming from the lens of look at this evil guy, like how evil he, right? Um, people can get very reactionary to what I'm saying and defensive because it's like they think I'm like pro everything that
Got it.
person did.
Got to hang in there.
Um, it's yeah. Some people can't hang in there. It's it's Jordan Peterson brain. When people who listen to too much Jordan Peterson get very angry like this when you talk. So, but to quote Lenin, one of his, it's a revolutionary quote, but it's there will be decades where nothing happens, and then there will be weeks where decades happen. I feel like that's where we're at right now. We're coming from the 20th century, decades of post World War II,
Mhm.
just the world dynamics after the United States was kind of the alpha. Even when the Soviets were up, it was always kind of the United States.
Mhm.
It wasn't as much of a. I think people, from my assessment of listening to historians that I trust, they say if you like really talk about like the reality, like the the USSR fell on its own. It wasn't really like because of the US, like they were just flawed, right? And so the real, like the rivalry of like, ooh, it was this versus this is
Mm-hmm.
kind of oversold, kind of like to sell the story,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's always kind of been the U.S. since World War II, because we were the only country where our infrastructure wasn't completely destroyed, and now the other countries in the world have developed themselves, and in the age of financialization, where the economy goes all through like globalization and financialization, other countries have risen to a point where the U.S. can't push people around like we used to. Can't do the same economic colonization and strangleholds, and there's other people to partner with, and so there's a complete shifting in global dynamics going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to understand where we are in the United States as just regular citizens, right? People who aren't, directly involved in making these decisions in relationship to all these things, from Sudan to Israel, Palestine, to Ukraine and Russia, kind of like understanding that. And a question I have for you. So in my evolution of thinking and identity,
Mm-hmm.
right, I have struggled with really like connecting to the identity of like, I am an American, like truly, right? And seeing us versus them, right? And so I'm trying to take the perspective of, I forget which historian said this, but said just because there's a bad guy doesn't mean there's a good guy, right? And trying to really diagnose what's going on while including my identity as an American, but not being too tied in it,
Mm-hmm.
Because if we really like want to understand it. So like, letting go of that identity in a way that we can understand it, but also not losing ourselves in it so that I don't stand for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, yes, it's always that balance, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you and I have talked about this on the phone a few times, just in personal conversations, where there's like levels of integration of what you're
Mhm.
talking about. Like I see it all the time in my healing practice, where somebody is a real spiritual seeker and maybe they've seen like the Ram Dass documentary, Becoming Nobody, and you hear about doing all this work so that you can realize that you're one with God and you're supposed to get all these benefits from it,
Mhm.
and the idea is that that is true, but you have to know how it actually works, because if you try too quickly to rush to become nobody, you've never had the chance to become somebody first, and then you don't even know yourself. So it actually becomes like a defense against something that
Mhm.
you don't know how to be with or metabolize,
Mhm.
which is really important and necessary to understand the most integrated level of oneness, which is a oneness that includes two-ness, right? A nobody that has the wisdom of being somebody, right? It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that we're discarding, we're excluding, we're killing off parts of ourselves. We are integrating who we are into the larger wholeness, right? It's like the difference between taking a bunch of mushrooms and having like a mushy kind of oneness, and then really working through your trauma and understanding, oh, this is what I'm about, and wow, my connection to God or my connection to being whole actually has to include my suffering, and somehow that is the oneness, right?
Yeah.
It's like it becomes, the wounds are not discarded, they become transparent, you see through them, but you can't get rid of all this, right? So to bring that metaphor into like identification with a country, for example, right? I was born in America. My mother was born in Germany. So I grew up in sort of a mixed household, right? They all spoke German and so on, right? So I don't know, I chose to be American, and that's what I want to, because that's where I was born, identified with, right? But when I say that in the times that we're in now, it makes me feel very uncomfortable, right? But then when I let myself ride that, it brings me closer to what being an American is all about. I think I shared this last episode of the one before, where I was like, after Charlie Kirk died, it really forced me to clarify what my understanding of America was, what it means to be an American, what the spirit of this country was built on, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, what that is all about. Because I think I don't know. I think there's a ton of, I don't think anyone's going to disagree that there's a ton of value in that. Right. But it's how you hold it. It's how you relate to it. Right. It's like, obviously I have many family members that I disagree with as well. So yeah.
A couple things. The metaphor that I like to use, I don't know if this would be metaphor, but I think of Arya Stark, at least how she's shown in the show. I don't know what her storyline is in the
talking Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think about Arya Stark's character development, where she goes over to Bravos or whatever city it is to learn to become an assassin, right? With the many-faced god. And and she's like, you have to become no one. You have to become no one. You have to become no one. Right. And then do you remember?
Of course, I remember. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right.
That was in my smoking pot days. So I kept watching it over and over again because
right.
I'd miss entire sections. I'd be like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Anyway, go on. So I know it really well.
Yeah. So she becomes no one, or at least goes through intensive training, or almost comes very close to becoming no one. And then in her final test, when she's like about to be killed, she escapes and he asks, who are you? And she says, like, I'm Arya Stark of Winterfell. And that to me is the message is to truly become who you are. You have to become no one first. Right. And then you can really see, like, you like enter into the oneness, like the nothingness. And then you truly see your individuality for who you are. And you see, like, and really be your true self.
I think we're describing two different paths to the same place.
Yeah. Right? I was saying the same thing. I think Arya's is a perfect like metaphor for that.
Yeah, it's a great. Was that a foil? Right? It's like maybe it's not a foil, but you know what I mean. It's two sides of the third thing, which is the one that includes the two, right? And how to not be so over-identified with one by going through that process of not knowing who you are and also knowing who you are and having that experience.
Yeah.
And this is the rhythm of life. We talk about in the school the pulsatory movement of life, where entire nations go through this. The world goes through this. Like the earth, has a wobble to every 25,920 years, called the precession of the equinox, right? I think that's what it's called. Right?
What's it called?
Conspiracy. The precession of the equinox.
Oh yeah, you cut out for a second. So
yeah, no, it's just there's a wobble that takes about 26,000 years, right? And when I was in my conspiracy days, I used to monitor all those numbers and see how they were all etched into the Masonic framework of the country, and it's all in there, right? So like people understand these patterns and how important they are. What's difficult is once you learn the patterns, what does that look like in a human life? And that's a lot of what you and I like to talk about. Right? The way it is, right? Talking about Lenin in a neutral way. Well, it takes a lot of fucking work to be able to talk about Lenin in a neutral way. A lot of muscle, a lot of emotional awareness, a lot of being willing to ride that stuff,
I would say it's only hard to do that when you are over-identified with the American story and the Western story, because this is why I guess, like, if you take an honest history, you like have like an honest assessment of history, like the people that we hold as heroes, have done horrendous things throughout history.
Name a few. Like who are you talking about here?
First, like Winston Churchill. Like there is the reality of like, yes, he was a leader during the war. Yes. But also like led the British Empire in the slaughtering of native countries and like killed over like 1 million something people in India. I think maybe way more than that. Right. And we don't have that same reaction, right? Because it's our understanding of history was like, oh shit, Lenin evil, us good. But like, it's again, just because there's bad guys doesn't mean there's good guys, right? And these were imperfect people in imperfect situations. And what I find frustration about like understanding Russia and Soviet Russia was the revolution that they have, understanding the way life was before then, right?
Mhm.
Was our Nick like they're acting like, oh, Russia was like this fine place, and then the socialists and the Bolsheviks took over and turned it into hell. Like it was way worse under the Tsar.
Yeah. I think what you're talking about right here is like the value that we're all getting truly out of the internet. If like, because it really speeds up information, how we can see information and start to work through all this illusion that everybody who knows what they're doing is constantly spinning, right? Some people don't do it on purpose, right? Some people are accidental propagandists. Some people are just straight deluded. And that's okay. I mean, it's not okay, but it's like where you're coming from really matters to me. You know what I mean? It's like there's a lot of intentional. I mean, really, it's it's why I became so interested in war in the first place. Like I wanted to be like, I love war. I don't love war. War fascinates me. Number one, I can't believe it's still happening. I cannot believe this. Number two, I can't believe people sign up for this. This is insane. It's fucking insane. The romance and the glory and all that, it's total fucking bullshit. And I can actually say firsthand because I do healings with Navy SEALs and guys, tons of guys in the military, guys that used to cut people's arms off and fly it back to the US for identification, put it in a bag, bring it home, and then they're like, here, watch this video. We got to talk about this next session. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm like, yo, like, this is like, how do you feel about doing that, sir? And he's like, well, yeah. I wake up, I think about it. I do. I think about it. Then I get back to my farm and building a house for my family. And it's like, whoa. I actually had to do so much personal work around that because,
I would struggle.
The work that we do, right? Like if I can't bear what is coming up in the session, like that level of darkness, right? Like how do you stay whole while doing something that is that separate? So I had to do a ton of work around going to the depths of like darkness in myself. I'd have dreams about like looking at demons and shit, like right in the eye, like I was like, well, this is weird territory, heart of darkness shit, and so I'm fascinated by war because that's still going on. Right.
Yeah.
And people are getting better at it. And then you start to understand like the mental illness, what drives these leaders and the information war that goes on that manipulates the uninformed public to elect people into certain positions of power that have this mental illness, and then the millions of people that die. And it's like, this is the ebb and flow of life. Like all of this has to be included in our exploration to be able to look at this stuff in the eye and say, all right, what's really going on here? And it can be incredibly complex, which is why I'm such a fan of YouTube, frankly, because you get this opportunity to speed things up in such a dramatic way that we never could before, right? It was like before it was like word of mouth, then it was the printing press, and it was like nothing until now, which is decades happening in weeks, right? Even though I stole that from your earlier comment, that's not the context you're using it in, right? But
no, like that's why I say it's not even like I use it for. I say it to clients sometimes. I don't say this is a Lenin quote, but in terms of like noticing change in your life, it's like you put in years of work, and then there will be that moment, like you'll experience that moment where like in a few weeks, boom, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it wasn't because for 3 weeks it's because of months, potentially years, you were doing things. And then at that moment, that was the tipping point.
Oh, that's an interesting take. That's a part of it. I was actually thinking something different too, but that's absolutely true. And I love that. Reminds me, Jason Schulman's my teacher. He was your teacher at one point, or at least he taught your teachers to teach you, right? He always says there are machineries and mills working, and you need to trust that. If I was a professional gamer, I might say, okay, if I'm stuck on a certain puzzle, I'll go to sleep, and when I wake up, that's problem might be resolved in my mind because my subconscious was working, right? But there's also machineries and mills metaphorically working through all of reality, all of nature, the world on so many different levels. The birds singing, the bees humming, the buzzing. It's like I'm not just trying to be poetic. This is life, you know. And maybe at one point, right, we'll get off the heavy politics stuff just for a little bit, because it's really important to develop a shamanic viewpoint that isn't like out in the Amazon just doing ayahuasca, right? The shamanic viewpoint that says everything is connected and everything is speaking if you know the language of the heart, which is why you have to become somebody before you become nobody. That's my path, because I've bared witness to what it's like to understand how my subconscious mind is speaking to me through dreams and otherwise, and how the mind of the world is speaking through my heart. Like, for example, at one point, this is a recent revelation, I always wanted to be like, my totems to be like a bear or like an eagle or a tiger or like some cool animal. And it was only this past summer that I realized that insects speak to me on a really deep level. They actually inform me on a very practical way about what I should be doing and how I should be doing it. And I realized that it's been happening since I was a baby. Like, my earliest memories were being obsessed with insects. And my favorite ant was an ant that would like give me like ant farms, or like butterfly chrysalises that would turn into butterflies. And like, and I was always like so interested, but because my ego wanted to be this big, powerful man with a big, powerful bear that would speak to him, I missed all of this wonderful communication that was always holding me, waiting for me to wake up to it, and always informing me, like a good friend giving good advice that I never listened to. And I was like, wow, like this was always here. Here's an example of it. Do you want to hear it? Is this interesting?
Yes, I want to hear. Well, give me an example.
Yeah, here's an example. So this summer, I had to sleep outside a few months. There was a crazy situation with my family. I lost a house. It was a big deal, right? But I knew enough about this work in the creation process to see what was going on. I could have gotten an apartment. I could have gotten another house. I could have done that. But I leaned into it in a certain way because I knew, because of the work that I do. I was like, no, this is actually the right move. And I'm fully prepared. I have everything I need to live comfortably outside like this. It'll be hard work in a different way, but I just didn't work as hard. I didn't see as many clients. And I just had to deal with the weather. And it was nice. I actually lived out there with my cats. It was really wonderful. I'm lucky enough to have cats that are trained to go camping with me, So I had everything I needed to show up and do this. It saved an incredible amount of money. It's a good story. I got plenty of good stories. It was a wonderful experience. It was a hard experience, but it was a wonderful experience. But the one thing that I dealt with every single day that was a huge problem was yellow jackets or wasps, this very particular kind of insect. Right? It wasn't mosquitoes. It wasn't ticks. It wasn't anything like that. I had no problems. In fact, I also had a skunk that moved in and lived with me. And I realized at one point I befriended it because I looked up like how hard would this be to befriend a skunk? Turns out not hard at all. It took maybe a week before the skunk was eating with me and my 3 cats every night.
That's insane.
But the skunk protected us. You got to understand. Like when I wasn't around, if I had to go to the store or go to somewhere else or go back into town, whatever it was, like this, I knew the skunk was there, and I'd come back and there'd be a spray. And like, I'd be like, oh, the skunk protected us again. I'm like, this is so awesome. Like the skunk moved in and helped us. And, so there's that. But then the yellow jackets at one point, I would go to sleep. It'd be like 1 a.m. and I'd get stung by a fucking yellow jacket in my sleeping bag, in my tent. And I'd be like, ow.
That's
like,
I hate these things.
Talk about terror. Like I'm like, what is this? Wow, what is this? Ah, like by myself in the dark,
Yeah.
And then I'd find a yellow jacket. I'm like, they're not even out at night. I'm like, what the hell? Like, why is this in my tent, in my sleeping bag, right? So, and it would bite me like right on my left hand is basically useless. I was just discussing with Jeannie the other day whether or not I should turn it into like a hook or something, because I broke it. My finger got snapped a few months ago, which is what in the middle of a physical altercation. You didn't? Oh, well, yeah, I can't talk about this on the air.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I was attacked. Guy broke my finger basically in half, and so like now I have like one finger that had surgery that barely moves, another finger that doesn't work anymore, and my left hand in general that only gives me pain on a daily basis because there's a metal plate in there, and it was supposed to come out like 20 years ago. But at that point, my, the grass had eaten the roads kind of thing and eaten the buildings. So nature took over. So I can't get it out. So anyway, I want to get rid of this hand. And I got stung on this hand and it hurt for days. I'd never had a sting that was just this exquisite, like a pain I'll never forget my entire life. And it took a few months for me to realize how grateful I am for that pain. to remind me of what the Yellow Jackets were teaching me. And so here's a cool thing. I wish if I had the book. Oh, I do see.
And what were they teaching you?
I'm taking the long way around. I know. I'm trying to bide some time to set it up. So basically, there are easy runways into the shamanistic way of thinking. You could talk to a shaman and someone who understands, like, most likely, when the Yellow Jackets show up, here's what it means, right? And what it means is use what you've got, use all the resources that you have right now to build your home, right? And it says don't work outside your resources, use what you have. You don't need anything else. Use that and work your butt off every day. Work towards your goals. Just work towards your goals. Questions you want to ask yourself: am I doing everything I can be? Am I under delusion? Are the other people in my team doing everything that they can be doing to build this dream and make it a reality? Right. But it was like one foot in front of the other kind of stuff. And that's all I was doing. I was grinding every day with what I had to get this done, moving myself towards my dream, which was moving my family into a new house where I could have this studio, could have my healing practice, and everything could unfold. And all of that happened perfectly in the last few months. And my life is great. Everything's going to be great. I set myself up for the next decade, right? But during those 3 months, never before in my life had I been swarmed by so many wasps and Yellow Jackets and stung by them and so on. What are the chances of that? The fact is, when you keep looking at the world in this way, the world is always doing this. From birds singing to storms going by to whatever. You can't always get the message, and there's not always the clearest of messages, but in a certain way, there's an intelligence that holds all of us, and it is beautiful. It brings me to tears when I see it. Here's another piece of it. My grandfather, who meant the world to me, when I gave his eulogy, it became like a teaching for me over time, because I went to a really deep place. I put the words together, and what I said was true about him. And here's a guy who is completely himself. Right? I said his brilliance was in his simplicity. He didn't want for anything. He didn't want to be more than what he was. He was the least grandiose person I ever met. And because of that, also the funniest. Like, you just joke around about people that were being ridiculous. And he knew how to calm down every situation, keep every situation together. When he was young, he became a Spartan warrior. That was his goal as a little kid. And then he joined the military, and then he became a police officer for 31 years. And then when he retired, they forced him to retire. He kept driving his police route every day. That's just what he did. He took care of his family, took care of his world, and he kept everything together. Right. And when he died, it was heartbreaking, but it was through osmosis. And because I loved him so much, his wisdom started to come into me. I started to grow up really fast, decades and weeks, truly. And I started to feel well, I'm changing. I'm becoming I'm not joking around about things that I used to joke around about, because I'm seeing how deadly serious these things can be. I'm seeing how scary the world is. It was a very sobering experience after he died to kind of step into the next role in my family, because there was no more him. Right. So there's something that happened. I also believe something's going on in the spirit realm where he's literally, osmosis is taking place, because I feel him at my back the same way I felt my brother after he died at my back, except he was at my side. I feel my grandfather at my back. And so I do think that his wisdom is coming into me. But when he died, they were playing taps at his funeral, because it's a military funeral. Wasps, Yellow Jackets all over his grave, And it was just I was there. I was oh, fuck. I was he was the Yellow Jacket. It's that was his totem. And this is it. It's coming into me. So now, this is cupness of time stuff, or past, present, and future are all happening in the same place, because it has to do with potential. Right. And one of the things I'm pretty good at is seeing the potential in a situation, and sort of a confirmed potential of most likely situations in the future in certain ways, areas that I know pretty well. When it comes to consciousness and what creates life, I'm pretty good at that. Right. And so that's the level that the world can speak to you on if you know how to listen. And so the wasp became a totem of mine. Not that I welcome being stung by it, but I'm listening now, and let me get some of the key words out for you. If you take 10 seconds, I'm gonna go grab the book. I'm gonna read them to you. You get a better sense of it. And you'll tell me if this is too boring, or if people don't want, if this is not helpful or not. But to me, it's profound. So it's important to me to at least try to communicate it.
All right, go get it.
Give me 1 sec.
And I'll take this moment to post the live stream link.
So for anybody that wants entry level into this kind of thing, there's a guy named Ted Andrews who's written 1,000 books. but this is the book that you're going to keep running across. It's called Animal Speak. All right. You see this bad boy?
Yes.
All right. This is Animal Speak. He's also got Animal Wise, and he's got something called Nature Speak, which I have next to me. So in this, I have like a little dictionary where you just look up the animal totem, something that is like really, in your face, and you get a sense of like, all right, like what could possibly be speaking to you, because there's always the more general language of it, and then there's your personal relationship to it, understanding what this means for me in my life and integrating that, right? So let's see here. Insect totems. We're going to go to the wasp. I may have grabbed the wrong book, so I'll keep buying time. Might be an Animal Wise. Let's see here. Insects and arachnids. Here we go. Wasp. Okay. So let me, again, I lose everything potentially. I decide to not go the typical route, and I decide to use all of my resources to hunker down for a few months and just work my ass off towards my dream in a way that I believed and knew was going to work out, right? So now all the wasps show up, and the keynotes for this are protective nourishment and role fulfillment, dreams fulfilled through practical efforts, right? That's the general idea. Dreams fulfilled through practical efforts, all right? The wasp is a stinging insect that belongs to the same group as ants and bees. They live in different societies. Some are social, some are solitary, and so on. Let's see here. As with bees, there's tremendous symbolism to the wasp and all of its activities. It teaches the lesson of fulfilling one's role and responsibilities. It reveals, during this time, I was like, I'm learning how to be a man. Like, I'm finally growing up. This was my experience the last 4 months. I was like, I am finally learning what it takes to be a man and get in touch with my own suffering and depth of terror and horror about people's behaviors, the imperfections of the world, and finding a different place for them within my heart that wasn't escalating. Truly. My grandfather had this amazing capacity to calm everything down and hold it all together. Somehow, it was brilliant. And he would just do it with a couple words or like a few simple deeds, right? And my healing in my heart was, it was like, oh, I'm having a larger space for all this. We're like, I can't be fighting all the imperfections of the world. I can't be demanding that everybody wake up and do the healing work and change and be better. It's never going to work. Like, it was like, I was creating so many counter waves. I wasn't working with life as it was. And during these few months, I was really learning about how that works, And so role fulfillment, I was stepping into my role as being, the patriarch of the family. I was stepping into the role of being the guy that takes care of everybody. And while that was happening, I was also using this language. It's funny how it's all coming together, but I was also using the language of, I feel like I'm becoming nobody because I told you I don't watch movies and do any of that stuff anymore. I'm getting back to it again because as soon as we talked about it, I was like, I should be trying to have a little bit more fun and relax a little bit more, but really what it was a runoff of this healing I was going through where I was like, yo, I don't need that. There's other things that matter way more. And I'm the one who sees it. So I'm the one who has to do it. And instead of trying to change the world, it was like, no, remember, be the change, stop demanding that people wake up and see what's going on and love them, right? Doesn't need a warm feeling of love, but an attitude of inclusion and not telling everybody what they need to be doing because it scares the shit out of me or they're causing harm. It was a different level of wisdom and relationship that I'd never opened up to before, right? And during this time, I'm going through like this crazy, difficult experience, but also very rewarding. So when wasps show up, we should ask ourselves some important questions. Are we feeling paralyzed in the pursuit of our goals? Are we building from the ground up? Are we working solitary or for the group? Are we fulfilling our tasks? Are those around us doing their parts? Are we pursuing our dreams in a practical manner? Are we getting too aggressive in our pursuits? So it's like all about dreams being fulfilled through practical efforts and fulfilling your role and responsibilities. And you could say this is going on all the time, right? So people that poo-poo this, I understand that argument. And what I would say is the more you delve into this and at least just take an attitude on as it may be being true, you start to feel a qualitative difference, right? Because it wasn't butterflies that were around me. It wasn't crocodiles. it was wasps, and there's a very specific understanding of what the wasp message was. And that was already like this. It put me in awe because I'd already worked through all of this and shared all of this with my closest confidants. And then I found the wasp and I was like, oh, it's all right there. And then I was like, oh shit. I was like, I'm such an egomaniac. I was denying a whole level of reality that was speaking to me the entire time. And it would have motivated me. It would have inspired me, and I would have felt more secure through the process. Many things would have happened too. You get that? Mm-hmm. Right? My whole point is the whole world is doing this all the time, and it's only us that creates the obstacles to listen on that level. So at some point, we might want to look in some of that just to switch it up.
That's really that shamanic lens, right, is power. And I don't know, I always come in with the what would a skeptic say, right? The scientific mind, and for me, my relationship with it is, if that the way in which you are receiving the message that you received at the end of it, right? That's the important part. Mm-hmm. Whatever the awakening is, whatever the healing is, that's the important part. So whether we can literally prove it or not.
Yeah.
The world and the universe presents itself to us in an abundant, an infinite number of ways in which information can come in.
Yes. So, and look, I welcome any and all skeptics, and not in an aggressive
I'm not
way,
being skeptic. I'm just saying if someone's being skeptic to me, that's what my response, me personally, I have not had moments like that where I felt like animals or insects were communicating with me in a certain way. Mm-hmm. But I feel that I have received messages and lessons from something beyond, a typical human understanding of the way in which the world works. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think as long as it's pushing you in a direction that's good for you and healing for you and bringing you into your true self, there's nothing wrong. There's no damage with it. It comes to the point when you start to become a cult leader and oh, I heard this message and then now this means this for the rest of the world and everybody else. Mm-hmm. That's a difference.
It's a problem. That's a problem. Yeah. Right. And, it's a little bit like being a brilliant painter and not knowing how to tell somebody how to do it. Right. I'm a teacher at my core. Right. I stumble through self-exploration and wanting to know myself and know the world. I discover certain things that are of such great value to me, everything from, again, wonder and awe to just feeling held in a larger process. When that happens, many neurotic things fall away. A lot of stuff, protective aspects of my being, where things that were confused or things that I was still wondering about, can fall away into the larger whole, and it focuses me. It puts me in one pointed consciousness, and there's where all my power is. I'm not fractured, right? I go, oh no, this is exactly where I need to be, right? The bees just buzzed by, right? I do know this. I do know this, and I'm not saying anything. And what I'm saying about this is there's absolutely nothing abstract about it. There's nothing fuzzy. There's nothing vague. This is as specific as anything can be. You just have to learn how to do it. I'm 15 years in, of doing this day in and day out. I did come from a beer drinking, football playing background with no relationship to God and healing or anything. So it took me longer than most. Right. But I can say part of that experience is knowing what it was like the other way. And knowing what it's like now, and the feeling that it gives me and the power that it gives me is profound. I don't mean the power to change the world, but the power to change my world. And that's a lot,
Yeah.
So that's it, right? I mean, just wanted to bring that in,
Awesome.
And I'm not in the business anymore of trying to prove anything. I find it to be a waste of time, right? It's us keep improving myself. I'll know what's right, and then I keep teaching it in different ways. And the people that like it or they're interested in it, I can show you the path, right? Like I could create a workshop right now how to talk to insects. It would take me maybe an hour to put it together because it's all the same thing. It's about who am I and how do I relate to life. So the fundamentals are you got to know how life works, you got to know how you work, and then you got to show up. You do that enough times, you will. If it's insects that are going to speak to you, great. If it's numbers changing on the clock, that'll happen too. But there's a certain way where you can start to listen. People call it synchronicity, right? There's a difference between coincidence and synchronicity. What is the difference? For me, it's about when meaning spontaneously breaks out from when something was happening. It has something to do with how the conscious mind is riding a wave, and the wave is riding you. It's like there's a wink, there's a reflection, there's a holding. We start to see so much light around you. You go, oh my God, it's not, the CIA listening in on you or, changing advertisements on your phone, right? That stuff does happen. It's not, I just bought a Nissan Altima and now I'm seeing all Nissan Altimas around me. That happens as well. But I'm talking about like being able to recognize when, something else is happening that you're in alignment with. And it's so obvious because it all speaks to you, and it gets dangerous, right? Because again, this isn't as fundamental as just grab my board, let me ride this wave. I know I'm riding a wave because I'm surfing a wave, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of confusion about that, right? But this is invisible. But we're talking about when we come to the mind and it comes to the consciousness that creates these world conflicts and the healing that can come about from resolving these within ourselves first. It's profound, and all of the world is a part of that. How could it not be?
Yeah.
And that's why the shamanistic view can be incredibly helpful for those that are attracted to it, and I think it's the natural view. You could just call it the natural view because it's like what happened before we started to use, it's like, again, conceptual, intellectual, emotional, physical mind. It's like, this is something else. It's like the mind of the heart conscious, It's a way of seeing how everything, I don't know, like a number of swallows together. It's not much, but then you have a million of them and it's sacred geometry. And it's like, whoa. What was that implicate order that was hidden or something that couldn't have been there if there wasn't more pieces to it? And now it's so obvious. Like, wow, this is beautiful. Right. And it's about seeing that beauty, even in, the most horrifying situations, because it is there.
Mm-hmm.
And then being able to work with it on a practical level.
Yeah, I think about when you talk about the intelligence of the heart, Radical Wholeness, the book. I hate that I'm
Philip Shepherd.
Name Philip Shepherd. Yeah, so he talks about he spent time with called the Anglo-Ave tribe, and how they consider their gut as to have a brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think science is beginning to prove that,
special forces.
And they but they're connected to the natural world, quote unquote, natural world in a different way. Like they perceive the world with different intelligences in the body that I think Western society is cut off from, that has completely cut itself off from. He even talks about how they consider speech to be a sense, right? And the phrase that they use is translated to, how do I know what I think until I see what I say? Right. And so it's just like a different, a more holistic, a more whole way of perceiving information and putting together more pieces of reality.
Right. Like when you said, how do I know what I think until I see what I say? I felt that in my body.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember when I first heard it too, I was like, yes.
Right.
Yes.
I went, whoa, that is a different relationship, right? A different dimension that was always there, but I wasn't consciously aware of it. Now I can be informed differently by it. I felt that palpably in my system, right? As you said that. And to me, that's very trustworthy. Right. Yeah. I'm about to guide a class through the 4-year program with you. And is it tomorrow? You and I are going to sit down. We're going to go over this curriculum, and we're going to be introducing stuff like the Dogon tribe, right? That somehow understood astronomy in a level, where like they understood the Sirius star cluster, and like they were to name where like all these star systems were long before we had any sort of technology to perceive it, and how they came to that information is very interesting, right? We'll talk about the Polynesian navigators, the sailors, people that were masters of the sea, well beyond what we have now with all of the equipment that we have, right? What's up with that? What were they listening to? Right? What were they seeing that we can't? Is a different level of awakeness in the human system, right? They were in touch with one of the many syntaxes that reality has enfolded within it that is probably very whole and helpful, and it's like we can learn a lot by this. There's a whole science called biomimicry that started in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
It's now become big in a lot of universities and so on. It's the study of how nature solves life's problems.
Yeah.
So tech people are looking at how spiders, create this incredible web that, we can't reproduce a technology. And they're trying to put that into like Kevlar vests, or how, different organisms can store so much information, and how we can use that for like microchips and so on. Where like just on the human scale, what does water do when water becomes stuck? How does water solve the stuckness problem, right? And I use this in my sessions all the time because it's like, well, I'll tell you what water does is it gathers twigs and leaves and other organisms, and it creates an entirely new ecosystem, right? It self-actualizes, it grows, it becomes something new. Instead of the river that was flowing, it creates an entirely different setup, right? And how does it do that? By developing relationships. So more relationship, right? And as we're taught, the most fundamental level of healing, which is the nature of reality, in my opinion, is all about relationship. Why are all these wars and conflicts going on? Why do bad things happen? Because something is unconscious playing out. Some suffering is playing out through us, and we are not in relationship to it, or we don't know how to be in relationship to it, And so you can study the world, right? Science is there. They just don't call it shamanism, but that's 100% what they're doing. They're observing nature and they're listening to it, and they're saying, how can we manufacture this? I don't know if that's such a great idea, but it's pretty cool, and also, special forces, used to train, there used to be a lot of secretive divisions. MK Ultra is one of them that's very well known, but a lot of stuff, because they worked with the mind and understand the stuff. They used to train, the movie Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yep.
Right. That was real. And for the life of me, I'm trying to remember the guy's name, because I interviewed him like so many times because I loved what he did, but he was like losing his mind at the end of his career. So it was kind of like herding cats to try to interview him.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember his name. He wrote a book called Power Tools for the 21st Century. So I know that it's like whoever wrote that, that's what I'm talking about. But he was the guy that trained the Navy SEALs. And so he would say, listen, when you are flying in one of these Black Hawk helicopters and you have a bad feeling about something, listen to it, and you train them to listen to their gut, and they would avoid these secret, encampments that would take down that helicopter, and they would fly around. And so they taught them to learn to listen differently. And this also evolved in Iraqi warfare, where when we were there for a very long time, very simple things like they realized we don't need to communicate with our words. They're like, that's actually like not efficient. So they trained enough with each other where everything was unspoken and they could feel what was about to happen next.
Yeah, I read that in the Stealing Fire book.
Okay, yeah. Which is all about this kind of stuff.
Jamie Wheel and whoever the other guy is. Yeah.
Yeah. And the unfortunate part is all this stuff becomes, you
kill a bunch of people and an illegal evasion. Yeah.
It gets, brought in with the consciousness that's seeking it for power or something, right? That's the unfortunate part. We're talking about healing. We're talking about healing, conflict resolution. But anyway, all that stuff is very fascinating to me. So I think it would be nice to explore some of that, in addition to what we're going to go into today.
Yeah.
What do you think?
All right. I got this Ukraine video up.
Okay. So this is a totally different feel from what we were just talking about.
Dude, we don't have to do it.
No, it sets the stage. I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll like this guy. He's ex-military for the United States. He was a YouTuber doing just random other things that his heart wasn't in. And he kind of stumbled into, talking about the Ukraine war. And I found him when he was very, very small. And, the reason why he kept doing the reporting on the Ukraine war was because it was getting him clicks, not because it's where his heart was.
Yeah.
Right. And he was like, this is what getting me clicks. So I'm going to do it.
Economy.
And now he's become like the guy. And let me tell you, he cares. And he's created all these wonderful fundraising campaigns. His big one is called Save the Donkeys, because he's trying to save all the donkeys that are getting killed as the Russians ride them into battle with this world-class army riding donkeys into battle. Like they're on their last legs, man. So check it out, because this is unprecedented times, right? We've never had a time before where you could live stream genocides and wars like this. The information we have is profound, and this is it. I mean, this is everything, the peak of human civilization and the democratic consciousness, everything that we've built, and to give people human rights, right? Everything that we've worked towards as a species to maintain human rights is on this border between Ukraine and Russia. And it's happening. And it wasn't going great for 3 years, and the tide just started turning. So that's why I want to bring it in, because why not? We'll start there, and then you can throw a couple videos at me.
Funny enough, the quote he has up here on this tweet is from Defense of Ukraine. They're quoting Winston Churchill, who I just talked about.
Boom.
Yeah.
Synchronicity, my friend.
All right.
Play that bad boy.
Let's start with the disappointing news first. And I'm disappointed that in the last 3 days, Ukraine did not strike any new Russian oil refineries. They struck some other things, we'll cover that. But here's the good news. Russia's fourth largest oil refinery halts processing unit after drone attack. This is the Ryazan plant located southeast of Moscow. The industry sources in Russia told Reuters the CDU4 processing unit was urgently halted on Thursday after it caught fire following a drone attack. The unit's capacity stands at 4 million metric tons a year, or about 80,000 barrels per day, accounting for around a quarter of the plant's total capacity. Kinetic sanctions work. This is the path that we've been committed to now for about 3 months. And where do you think we're going to be 3 months from now? Russia can't make this stop. This is the Ryazan refinery located right here. And these refineries, one by one, are going to continue going offline until Russia stops this war. This is kind of a big story from the last 2 days, and this might be a new direction that Ukraine is going in. Russian sources claim Ukraine struck the Belgorod Dam. Potentially flooding could affect the border settlements. Now, Russia is already attacking all of Ukraine's dams. The machine houses have been destroyed so that these dams can't produce electricity. So this might be Ukraine shifting their policy and now viewing dams in Russia as fair targets. As long as the Russians are bombing Ukraine's dams, Ukraine might be willing to reciprocate now.
Pause here for a
So
second.
these are the pictures that the Russians have released, and I don't see any.
This is the turn that we're talking about, that we're witnessing right now, right? Because, obviously Ukraine's not going to say, okay, this is what we're going to start doing now, right? So we can only extrapolate based on what we're seeing, right? And this guy's a good internet sleuth. He picks up on all this stuff. And Russia, for 3 or 4 years, has been hiding all of this stuff from the public, right? Because the whole reason Putin came to power is because he basically said, give me all the power and I'll take care of you and I'll protect you, right?
Control the media.
Yeah. And so he took all their rights away, and now, he's a real, total piece of shit. And he's been hiding all this damage, but he can't hide it anymore because Ukraine started changing their approach and started hurting. Now they're hurting the civilian population. They're cutting them off from resources and so on. And so people are going, wait a minute. I thought we were winning this war. I thought we were killing the Nazis in Ukraine. Like, why are there military installations outside my house now? And why is it a donkey and not a tank? Right? They're like, something is not adding up. Something is weird. And so this is why I wanted to bring it in now, because we're going to see where, we may not have to do this every hang in there episode, right? But just to check in, this is the moment, in my opinion, where Russia has lost the war.
Gotcha.
So that's what's happening.
Missile or drone fragments. I'm not exactly clear how Ukraine did this. The Russians are screaming it was HIMARS, but I don't think Ukraine would do that when they have their own domestically produced weapons And this is so close to the border. So this is Belgorod, this is Kharkiv, this is Volchansk. The Russians currently about 3 or 4 kilometers deep into this territory. They're still attacking here occasionally. And this dam is located right here. So we can switch to the satellite image. This is the dam that Ukraine decided to target. And there is a fairly significant reservoir behind it. And there's currently flooding. The dam has been breached. One of the spillways is releasing water uncontrollably. This is kind of like a drone video from a distance, but the Russians were willing to release a video showing what the damage looks like. So let's watch this clip together.
It's all drone warfare now, right? There's a shooting drone after drone after drone.
Loud as hell.
Yeah. You know, you can't replace the infantry.
You can see the spillway here. It is not retaining the water. There's debris falling on top of it. So this looks significant. And the reservoir currently is draining. So it's already drained more than a couple meters, I guess. And this is going to affect farmers. It's going to affect the settlements upstream and downstream, as well as the Russian forces who are still attacking in this region of the map. So I don't know. I don't know what Russia is going to do about this if Ukraine wants to start going after dams. Russia for over 3 years has been bombing Ukraine's dams. Except for the Novokakhovka, none of the rest of them have broken. But I guess this is what we're doing now. Russia can stop this war if they want to save their dams. Ukraine also continues going after electrical substations. Drones strike electrical substation in Russia's Volgograd Oblast for the second time in 2 weeks. Here's the video showing the substation on fire in the distance. I imagine this is costing the Russians money, and it is causing disruptions in power supply to local cities. Ukraine also struck a minor oil depot south of Moscow. Maybe just a single container was on fire, but every drop of oil matters at this point. This is an interesting story. Ukrainian attack spoiled planned Zaporizhia birthday gift for Putin. This has been revealed by The Guardian, but apparently with the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, technicians were racing to reconnect the plant to Russia's power grid for Putin's birthday. This was, I think, October 7th. However, partisans in the occupied territories sabotaged and destroyed a new high-voltage line in Mariupol. So the Russians were not able to reconnect the power plant to the Russian power grid prior to Putin's birthday.
Pause here.
And because the plant went...
This is another cool side story. You want to say something? Yeah. No pun intended, right? You know, it's there are tier 1 operators. It's another cool side story. I mean, this is a whole. It could be an epic. You know, like you could write chapters and novels. So much about what's going on in this war. One of the cool things is two things I want to name. Number one, there are tier 1 operators hunting Russians down all over the world right now. Ukrainian special forces, where their job is to go all over the world and just hunt and kill anyone that matters, right? And I just think that's so badass. Number two is there are these secret organizations of people and some, it's also Ukrainian special forces guys, but like a different kind of vibe, where they smuggle themselves into Russia and they're just guerrilla warfaring. So every now and then, just in the most random place in Russia, something will blow up. And you just wonder, was it them? We'll never know, right? Just like things just go wrong in certain places at the right time, like a train having all the gas that they were sending just suddenly just goes off the tracks. Like, and you have to wonder, because Russia's going to say it was one thing, but it's not that, whatever Russia's saying, they're like, oh, it was a drunken guy driving the train. It's like, no, it's probably like these tier 1 guys that are out there sabotaging, behind enemy lines.
So are they like, I've only followed along like the major developments and like the many, not the here. Sorry, I'm giving Katie the charger. Come take it.
Yeah.
There. Welcome. So this because Russia first attacked in like 2014, right? Didn't they do like a mini invasion in 2014?
I'm not gonna. I didn't get much sleep last night. First thing that goes in my memory. 2014 was different than this, but yes, there was.
Yes,
they were doing a lot of shenanigans.
Totally different.
Yeah.
Okay, and this was 2022, right? Was it February of 2022?
Something like that. Yeah,
We're approaching 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the latest update? There's only so many things I can follow along with.
Yeah.
Who is like backing Ukraine right now in terms of supplies? Because I know we had our whole thing, but I think he then did another deal.
Yeah, it changes from time to time, right? So all of Biden's promised supplies, it was America. It was us, right? We were supplying them because, the Biden administration at least understood that this was the tip of the spear, right? And so, they're trying to bring Ukraine into NATO and so on. And so Biden supplies ended earlier this year, right? And then Trump changed it to sell. And said, okay, well, Ukraine's going to have to buy them from us now. Before we were just supplying them, right? And Trump has also changed exactly what is getting sent over there from time to time. He waffles all the time as well, which is really, really frustrating. Like he wakes up and changes his mind, right? And so I think the Swiss just decided to send some fighter jets, like a large fleet of fighter jets over there. The Germans have done a lot. I'm trying to remember, just a quick, off the top of my head, I'm not going to give it to you right now, right? But there are a few European countries that occasionally will give a decent amount, but I got to say, like, a lot of it comes from people like you and I who donate to guys like Jake Bro and this YouTube channel, and then they go send the vehicles over there. Right, like the vehicles to go save people from casualties, the money and the parts to build the drones, and so on. So much of this is coming from the people of the world who are supporting and understand what's going on right now. $5 here, $10 there, that kind of thing. Get a patch, get your Save the Donkeys patch, shit like that. So it's like NATO has been really sluggish, and I would say like completely weak, and it scares the shit out of me because I'm like, what are we doing here? Like. You realize that like Russia is testing not just Ukraine, like he's flying into Poland, he's flying into different countries.
Yeah, I saw they went into Poland recently.
He's doing this to see what NATO will do to respond. And NATO keeps saying, let's have a meeting about it. Article 4, let's have a meeting about it, right? It's like, no, shoot that shit down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you shoot it down.
Yeah. So that has been my big fear. Has been with Ukraine and Russia, with Israel and Palestine, and Sudan as well. Like the post-World War II, like human rights declaration and the international law. Not that we ever like fully ever followed by it, but we at least like tried to not just be blatantly violating international law all the time. It's like between Russia, between what Israel is doing, it's like thrown it out the window. And that's my fear of like, we enter into this space of like, at the end of the day, what upholds it's the threat of violence, right? If we can't physically enforce it, and everyone's just gonna be let's just go to court, or we're gonna sue you, or it's like, well, we're not gonna show up to court, and we're gonna keep.
Also, it weakens its strength, it emboldens Putin, and it weakens psychologically the will of the people.
Yes,
which is what the whole government is based on, right? And this is what they're doing, is that it's psychological warfare, at the same time as literally invading. Right. Yeah. But they're doing both to weaken the alliance, because everybody at one point was looking to Trump and America. Right. And then you're seeing him not do anything about it. Right. And it's like, well, what are we going to do now? And Europe wasn't doing anything about it. So it's like, OK, well, is NATO even a thing? Is it even a thing? We thought this was like the world's greatest defensive alliance. Does it even exist? Right. And so it's like this, like the gears are so slow moving. It drives me insane, you know? And look, I'm not on the inside, you know, I'm technically a YouTuber talking about this, right? So like, I don't understand why they're doing this, but some countries now, the tide is turning, right? Like the only reason why Ukraine started to do these technically war crimes is out of survival. Like I give them a big fucking pass because like they hung in there for 3 years, you know? And it's like now they're doing something to hurt the Russian civilians because they need them to rise up, and the tide is turning. So like different European nations are starting to wake up and step up, but it still doesn't look good at all, man. Doesn't look good at all. And this is why I'm like, okay, it's like to me, it's a like not a powder keg moment, but one of those times where like we're going to look back and say this was the time. This was a time when everything started to change, and I don't know what it's going to change towards, right? But Ukraine, the shift is happening. So, you know, a lot of what Jake Bro's reporting on here are just the effects of strategy change, which is, again, like in 3 months, Russia is not going to be able to hang in there with this, and they have no defense against it, right? They've already killed an entire generation. You know, like they have nobody left that's willing to go to war.
I knew they were already struggling with like population growth anyway.
That's you know what, that's another thing that you and I should, you know, I have a good video on geopolitics and population growth, like what's going to happen the next decade or two, you know, and it like I'm this is new to me, how important it is for managing when people get older and when people stop having babies, and how that can create the rise and fall of nations as well. And it seems to be, I'm just getting to this and my mind is blowing. I'm going, is this the most important factor? Like it actually seems to be one of the most important pieces on how you manage that. And it doesn't look like many people are. But, you know, I'll bring that in at some point. That wouldn't be a long or deeply intense video. It'd actually be this guy, Peter Zahan. He like hikes in the Colorado mountains and just like does like a little video on his for 5 minutes, but he breaks it down really quick and it gives us a lot to chew on.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I can work with that.
We're building something here, you know. Our gears might be a little slow, but I feel like we're going to get there wherever there is, you know, to put these pieces together.
Yeah. This is a big question. So this could, and I'm even getting like nervous about asking this question or bringing this point up because of the anti-Semitism allegations that get thrown so quickly these days. So when we look at that situation there, right, of Ukraine attacking civilian infrastructure in response to Russia, right? We see it as, you can see the justification right there, and you can the understanding of like, yeah, I get it. Right.
You have to look, I'm already cutting you off, but you have to look at the big picture. Like how many more lives are going to be saved? Like you have to end this war. You know what I'm saying? Like Ukraine is fighting for their survival every day.
Okay.
You know?
All right. And this is for me, again, I'm stepping into radical empathy again as a way to understand the problem, not to excuse.
Got it.
Not to excuse, just is to understand the problem.
Yes.
Right.
I like the way you put it.
Shifting to Gaza.
Oh God.
From their perspective. Right. So
we're talking, when you say Gaza, we're talking Hamas leadership, Palestinians as a whole.
And particularly Hamas's leadership perspective. Right.
Okay. They
see this as, this is from my understanding, I could be completely wrong, right? This is from my understanding of like the perspective of that decision of what they did. They're dealing with, you know, decades of occupation, of when there were attempts to, you know, a few years before when they all like marched to the gates of Gaza, people got shot and killed, and they, you know, restrict, you know, words coming directly from Israeli officials, like let's put Gazans on a diet, saying we got to they used terms like mow the lawn, meaning you got to kill some of them every now and then. Right. That perspective of, well, if we don't do anything, we're all going to die slowly anyway. Right. And this move of, and I'm thinking this from the extremist perspective of, well, if we're going to die, we will take you down with us. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this Hamas in that perspective has been successful in showing the real true ugliness of the Likud party, Netanyahu, and the whole history of it, and has completely shifted public perspective worldwide. Israel is deeply unpopular now, and they've shown their cards, and there's no putting that back in the box. Right. So from that perspective, that is it. And that's the perspective they're taking of, if we're all going to die eventually anyway. So we're taking you down with us.
And let me tell you, just want to add a complexifying piece into this, because I have a handful of people that I'm very close with that are Israeli, that are very committed to a healing and spiritual path that I respect. Right. And they have, to them, according to them, information from people on the ground that really goes against what you just said, right? People that I sit down with, I have meetings with at least once a week for an hour or so, and they say things like this to me, and it's very confusing, and I'm like, what do we do? Right. And that is like a resigned position, but like, how the hell do you know what's real as this is going on? Right.
Totally.
Like, you call it the fog of war, the information war, whatever you want to call it. Right. This is where, if we had Ground News as a sponsor, we'd start promoting their news network, Ground News.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'm gonna have to subscribe to them soon, because William Kern's gonna start hopping on this channel at some point, and we're gonna start to do more news healing type stuff as well. But this is, it's a big question, and it's something where I got to stay in my lane. I'm sharing that, where I just go, yeah, I try. It's really fucked, man.
Yeah. Well, but that's what these things, right? So that's why I bring these up. Like, we're able to see clear lines in certain places, right?
Well, I made it a very clear line, in terms of how I see it.
Yeah.
At this point, and I think I can back that up. I got a major scholarship, a lot of money, many thousands of dollars, to pursue reporting through this lens on Gaza and Israel, or Israel, Hamas, whatever you want to call it. And I couldn't do it, because of this. And but I'm still committed to it, meaning I still have the money. So I have to do it at some point. And I've been waiting like years to do it. And it'll probably happen in the next few months that starts. So you and I will definitely be getting into it on this channel. There's no doubt, because it's something I have to fulfill my obligation, because I spent the money. So it's happening, whether we want it or not, Cool. And thankfully we do have a guy like William Kern, which is my buddy, who's been a reporter all his life, and he's got really good contacts still at the New York Times and other journals and so on. So we'll have a bit of a professional take, but you and I will stay in our lane, and you'll bring your side, I'll bring mine, and we'll just share what we know and our perspective, because that's how we do it. That's how we piece it together. That's the only way. You have to hold everything lightly enough to do something about it based on the information you have, and be flexible enough to be able to change as soon as new information comes, and so on. And this is a really hard one,
Yeah. It's the hardest one. And again, like, I bring it up because I don't see, I think some people, when they hear like bringing up specifically Israel and Palestine, there's a feeling of like, oh, you're only bringing it up because of it's Jewish people, right? And the trope of like the Israel controls everything, and right? I bring up because I think it's so the qualities about it, where if you can work through it, you can translate that to understanding the majority of conflicts because of the
human condition.
Also, there's this perspective in which we view genocide, where when we think of Holocaust, when we think of genocide, we think of the Nazis, right? And there is this way in which it's presented that when we think about Israel, we think about the Holocaust, right? And that being like, it's the only Holocaust that's ever, it's kind of like presented to us as like the only one.
Right.
But the truth is the Holocaust was just the first time that Europe did it to itself. Right.
There's other Holocaust going on right now in the world.
Yeah.
How many people know that?
And so
groundnews.com. But really, it's like,
but it's the first time that Europe turned inward on itself. Like, King Leopold of Belgium killed 10 million Africans during the rubber industry. 10 million, and don't even talk about it because that's all they think. That was in the Holocaust. They kept records, never kept records in Africa and the global South. They just fucking
that's right.
Did it. Right. And so again, because my goal and intention here is to actually solve conflict and actually understand the problem and where this is coming from. And if we only view genocide and Holocaust through what happened to Jewish people, we miss the greater context of like before the Nazi Holocaust, there was all like Hitler learned from looking at the Jim Crow South. He took notes from the US, right? We act like it was this one-off. It was the most intense and the most like systematic. And there are elements to it that make it different than anyone else, right? But the place of just wiping people out and killing people on that level due to hatred, due to whatever, is not unique. And I think it's really important if we only understand it from this lens of it coming from the Nazi Holocaust, we aren't going to identify the real source of where it's coming from. And I think that's dangerous.
Well, I can't disagree with you there, right? Because we're talking about genocide for what it is, and not, overly identifying it with that one thing, so that we can actually see what it is, right? What makes it, right? And what is its role, right? Those that don't know history are doomed to repeat it, right?
Yes.
So I think all the reason why I think being born in the age that we were in, somebody like you and I, who knew what it was like before the internet. Maybe you knew do you remember what it was like before the internet? You're a little bit younger than me.
Say it again.
I'm just talking about people that entered into the internet age and how fast things have gone,
Oh yeah.
People who do the work.
Really in the last like 12 years, I think, since like social media apps were able to move to your phone and everyone started getting a smartphone. I think like the iPhone came out like 2009 or 2010. And then like 4 years later, everybody had one. And then like since like 2014, 2015, like everyone's had social media on their phone.
That's right.
And that's where everyone gets it at all times, everywhere they go.
Absolutely. And there's something about it. Like, we have to learn how to work with this stuff. This is actually what I think William Kern goes to sleep and wakes up thinking about algorithms. Like I can't, like, I'll talk to him about like my daughter, and within moments we're talking about algorithms again. We need people like that understand how information flows and how it's used against us in different ways. And the only way that we can resist that and start to create solutions that are actually helpful is by understanding what we're up against here. And the difficult thing is that life is hard and we don't have time, so like, You got to bring the right crew of people together that have the right specialties and the capacity to also share and know enough of the whole with their specialty to put something, special together that actually makes sense. That's what I was saying about like, you and I in this channel and so on, my sense is like, we're building something, I'm very relaxed going into these videos. I don't think about it too much. I try not to like push it away or anything, but like, I'm just like, no, like I'm doing this work day in and day out. Right. And I'm bringing what I do, I'm staying in my lane and I'm bringing that into this and I'm sharing that. And to try to pretend that I'm something other than that is only going to do harm. What's that feeding? Right? Some false ego where somebody thinks I'm great because I know more than I do. It's like, no, I know enough. I'm good enough, And did I mention Winnicott? In one of these videos, I get confused sometimes because I'm talking about this shit all the time. There's a guy named Daniel Winnicott. He was in the required reading list for the Society of Souls 4-year program. Winnicott in the 1900s, he's a psychiatrist that revolutionized psychiatry and the idea of like what a good parent is. And he was focused on the mother-child relationship, but it's also about fathers and any parent, guardian, anybody raising a child. And he realized that you just have to be good enough. This was his big idea. And the rest takes care of itself, right? So he talked about the good enough mother, And to me, I've so much neuroses, so much bullshit in my mind falls away when I remember that. It's become like a mantra of mine, right? Just be good enough. It's great occasionally if you can be spectacular and you can rise above the rest, but it's not necessary. And if you're locked into wanting to be like that, you're probably going to do some more harm than good, maybe just in your personal life, even, I used to train sales teams. And I used to train all of them to be number one. But whenever one of them would pull me aside, one of the kids would pull me aside, I'd say, be number two. Go be number two. Go live your life. Have a good life, So all part of this marketing campaign I have. Yeah. I tell everyone, come do healings with me. You'll be really disappointed. It'll be great. Come on in.
So where do we want to go with this?
Let's keep it going. Is this okay? Is this all right? Yeah. Let's keep it going.
I think weeks without being connected to the power supply, the Russians were forced to reconnect it to Ukraine's power grid, which is what they've been trying to flip this power plant over for over 3 years now, and they're still failing to do it. Ukraine has also had a lot of success taking out air defense and radar systems. Ukraine wipes out 2 Russian radars and a Buk M3 in southern Ukraine. This is in the Kherson, Zaporizhia, and Crimea regions, but this is a compilation video showing Ukrainian drone units taking out a Buk surface-to-air missile system and then a Nibu radar station. This thing is worth, I think, tens of millions of dollars. A Russian small landing craft, 3 radars. Ukraine's Ghosts erased Russian defenses in occupied Crimea. Here's another compilation video showing Ukrainian drones taking out an S-400, a P-18 Terek, and another Nibu radar system. Russia can't make this stop. Ukraine is sending basically drone aircraft carriers to the Crimean coastline, and then FPV drones, I think that have fiber optic cables, are launching from the drone boats. They can't be jammed, they can't be disrupted, Russia can't shoot them down. And anything of military value on the Crimean Peninsula is getting absolutely wrecked. Demilitarization of Russia's air defenses continue. New Ukrainian strike disables an S-300-400 launcher under night sky. This video is on YouTube, and it's not specifying where this was, but this is another valuable air defense system going up in flames. I'll link the video down below.
Pause here for a sec.
Mini Bila.
One of the things that Ukraine does to raise morale is release these videos, and they're awesome because Russia has these things that are pieces of equipment that are millions of dollars, and they take forever to manufacture. And some of them, like one of the coolest operations they had, I think in the last 6 months, was they filled a train. They equipped a train going into Russia. It's something out of a movie with drones in the train.
Yeah,
So,
I
like,
saw all
Russian,
this.
right?
Yeah, I
And they
saw
took
this.
out like half of all of these like all of these Russian warplanes that were that were loaded and ready to go like that night, and they were going to kill a lot of people in Ukraine, right? And Russia, Ukraine does this like really cool, just like a video game, and then released all the videos of the drones releasing from the train. I could imagine playing like a Call of Duty game with this in it, where then you have to fly the drone into the military installations and blow up all of these planes that Russia's never going to be able to replace. This is a part of how warfare is evolving. We're like, now these drones are not very expensive to make. Ukraine has figured out a way to manufacture a lot of them very quickly, and they're just taking out these incredibly expensive things because they can't be stopped. And then Ukraine sends the video. There's a whole dark web. There's a whole other side of the internet that I don't ever go on that has so much of this.
Yeah.
If you're into that kind of thing, I'm not, but
I've seen stuff.
Yeah.
My I don't even gotta go on the dark web. My Instagram feed time is just dead bodies half the time.
Jesus. Yeah. I'm not on social media anymore, so I didn't even know that would be allowed.
Oh yeah. I've followed journalists from the beginning of I'm gonna say the beginning, but since October 7th. And just eventually just stopped seeing their posts because they got killed. And yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy. Okay, let's keep this bad boy going.
Horivka moments as 6 Russian vehicles sink during a failed river push in the Donetsk Oblast. This is the Russians once again sending their soldiers to die in meat assaults. And the weather right now is not conducive for the attack. So this bridge was out. It was destroyed a while ago. And Russia sent armored vehicles on the attack. The vehicles tried to drive through the water and mud to go around the destroyed bridge. And they were annihilated. I'll link the video down below if you want to see the destruction. But this happens every day. It's crazy. Ready to throw anyone to slaughter, Russia sends women to the storm as losses mount near the Pokrovsk area. This is a video, once again, I'll link down below, but these are 2 female Russian soldiers. Potentially they signed contracts and volunteered, but more likely they're female prisoners. They were recruited from a female prison and then sent on a meat assault to die trying to get into the city of Pokrovsk. This is where the Russian military is at. They're press ganging women to be frontline stormtroopers. And there is real concern here. This is a video posted by a 19-year-old Russian conscript. So people who go to the war zone, these are either reservists who have been mobilized or they're contract soldiers, they volunteered. But what Russia's been doing for 3.5 years is they're doing their normal conscription, larger amounts than they've done in the past. But they really put a lot of pressure on these children, 18, 19, 20-year-olds. Hazing them, bullying them, physically coercing them to sign a contract, so they're now a contract soldier. They're not even waiting for their 1-year conscription service to end before pressuring them. As soon as you're conscripted into the military, day 1 of your conscription, your commanding officer is already pressuring you to sign a contract so you can go to Ukraine and die. So this Russian conscript filmed a video saying he would never sign a contract. If the Russian government produces a contract saying he signed it, he did it under duress. I am Smergin Sergei Nikolaevich, born in 2005. I am recording this video in sound mind. I am serving in the city of Cherbukool in military units 15871 of the 90th Tank Division. I declare that I have no desire to and refuse to sign any kind of contract. If a contract appears allegedly signed by me, it means it happened under psychological or physical pressure. He's going to be in trouble. That's what I think is going to happen. This is
Easy
an
go.
interesting post from Commander Brad Crawford. I saw this on Twitter, and I want to read for you his analysis of what's going on with Russia's frontline forces. I have nearly 2 decades in the US Army and 3.5 years as a volunteer combat advisor in Ukraine. I hear directly from Ukrainian instructors and frontline soldiers the same stories. Russian units going into assaults with only one magazine, missing helmets and body armor, vehicles abandoned without drivers, and soldiers who simply refuse to fight. These first-hand accounts prove that the Russian army is not just under pressure, it is collapsing from the inside. The Russian land forces are breaking down completely. Mass shootings inside barracks, troops looting their own dead for gear, and the use of World War II-era ammunition all reveal a force in total disarray. When an army cannot equip, feed, or command its men, it is already lost. The Russian non-commissioned officer corps barely exists, and junior officers are inexperienced and poorly trained. Without that leadership core, units lose organization, discipline, and morale. Logistics are a nightmare, with vehicles out of service, ammunition stockpiles running low, and medical and communication equipment in short supply. Even elite formations are now a shadow of what they once were, forced to rely on untrained conscripts and prison recruits just to fill the ranks. After nearly 2 years of devastating losses, Russia's manpower crisis is impossible to ignore. Recruits are unmotivated, poorly equipped, and sent into battle with little preparation, while the few remaining professionals are exhausted and demoralized. What remains of the Russian army is running on borrowed time, stretched thin and held together only by fear and propaganda. Ukraine, on the other hand, continues to adapt, innovate, and fight with purpose. The contrast could not be clearer. Russia's army is dying from within, and Ukraine's strength, unity, and determination will carry it through to victory. I'm not going to pretend like Ukraine does not have problems. Ukraine has a lot of problems. They don't have enough equipment, they don't have enough weapons, they don't have enough soldiers. But Russia, having had every advantage for 3.5 years, still can't even take the entirety of Donetsk. They're not even close. The difficult cities to take are going to be Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. Just to take those 2 cities at the current rate Russia is going, it's going to be another 5 years. Ukraine has the advantage because it's their home turf. They're on the defense. Russia has to find a way to break through, and the opportunity is gone. The Russian forces haven't made any significant progress in the last 1,000 days. The last 1,000 days, the Russian military has only taken an additional 1% of Ukraine's total territory. I'm going to link this video down below if you want to see how bad it is out there. But this is a Russian soldier going on assault, and he's got like a GoPro camera on his helmet, and he's going during the daytime, clear skies, you can see everything. And there's just Russian bodies everywhere. This guy is being told to go forward, and he has to walk over and climb over dozens of his dead comrades. Bodies are not being cleared from the field by the Russians. They just leave them. They don't care. So Russia ultimately is going to lose this war because of their economy. Russian central bank cuts key rate to 16.5% as the economy slows. 16.5% central rate is better than 21, so it is coming down. Businesses have railed against high borrowing costs, which they say are sapping growth and holding the economy back. But the central bank says high rates are needed to bring down inflation that was still above 8% in October, driven by fuel costs and a seasonal jump in food prices. The central bank is essentially stating that next year we may see very severe economic stagnation. This was the opinion of an independent economist. Russia's economy is cooked. This woman, the central banker, she's done a phenomenal job holding it together for 3.5 years, but there's nothing more she can do. Russia's financial reserves are being exhausted. They're running massive deficits. I don't believe inflation is only 8%. It's definitely higher than that, given the rise in fuel costs. There's no coming back from this. The descent has already begun. Russian stocks slide as US sanctions hit oil majors. Last video we talked, Donald Trump and the US Treasury finally introduced new sanctions on Russia. This was on Lukoil and Rosneft. This is how their share prices performed on the Russian stock exchange. Lukoil was down 11% over the week, and Rosneft was down 8%. It's going to get worse because these companies have essentially been blacklisted. They can't do any trading in US dollars anymore. The terminal in New York City is going to track or block anyone that tries to do business with Russia's two largest oil companies. 35% of Russia's oil refinery capacity comes from Rosneft and Lukoil, 30% of its crude oil production, 15 to 20% of its natural gas production. If these sanctions hold, they've been blacklisted. They can no longer operate like normal. Now, the problem with sanctions is you eventually find a way around them. You just redirect through a new shell company or a new individual who's not sanctioned. It's a game of whack-a-mole. But for Russia's two largest energy giants, this is going to be costly to restructure, reallocate, divert, whatever the Russians have to do to keep getting their oil out. So what is Russia's plan to win this war? 3 killed, 32 injured in Kyiv amid Russian drone attack on residential buildings. I'll link the videos down below if you want to hear people screaming as another Russian ballistic missile slams into an apartment building. This is the same building the next day once the fire was put out. A 19-year-old woman and her 46-year-old mother were killed. One more body was found but remains unidentified. 29 people were injured, including 7 children. That was Kyiv. This is the city of Kherson, and the Russians are just indiscriminately shelling the entire city with artillery. There are no valid military targets. It serves no purpose. This is just terrorism. Right now, the Russians are doing to Kherson what they did to Mariupol. Destroy every building, kill every person, wipe it clean, so it's easier for our incompetent military to take. This is the drone video released by the Russians on the other side of the river because they're proud of what they're doing. This is a video inside the city of Kherson as the artillery is just indiscriminately landing everywhere. I can link these videos down below if you want to see how bad it is. Russian missiles hit another kindergarten and kill a rescuer in overnight strikes across Ukraine. A Russian missile left a crater between apartment buildings in Kyiv, while in the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, a double tap strike killed an emergency worker trying to extinguish a fire. Russia loves doing double taps. Kill as many firefighters, police officers, and medics as you can. That is Russia's strategy to win this war. Here is what President Zelensky has to say about the strikes. Last night, Russia attacked Ukraine again, this time with dozens of attack drones and 9 ballistic missiles. There was a missile strike in Kyiv. Sadly, there are killed people. My condolences to their families and loved ones. Dozens of people were injured, and almost every attack against our people now involves combined strikes using ballistic missiles. Since the beginning of the year, Russia has launched approximately 770 ballistic missiles and more than 50 Kinzhal hypersonic missiles against Ukraine. The drones are bad, the Shaheeds, but they're not that effective. Ukraine can easily shoot them down if they have the right teams in the correct locations. But these ballistic missiles and the hypersonic missiles, these are a problem because only modern air defense systems can shoot them down. Ukraine needs Patriots or IRIS-Ts for a chance to shoot down a Russian ballistic missile, whereas Gepards and these new interceptor drones can handle the Shaheeds, but this is a problem. Russia is still producing new ballistic missiles, and they're just bombing civilians with them. This is the capital city of Kyiv. This is a power plant that Russia struck with a ballistic missile. Here is the comments from Ukrainian journalist Maria Avdiva. Russia hit Kyiv again with ballistic missiles. No heating at home. Power's off for hours. Fires across the city. Russia keeps trying to break us. Still doesn't know how resilient we became. This is a farmer's market in Kyiv going on as normal against the backdrop of another fire. If Russia was capable of breaking the spirits of the Ukrainian people and getting them to submit, don't you think it would have happened by now? Almost 4 years into this war? This is a losing strategy for the Russians, and they just keep going. Putin's forcing them to keep going. I also wanted to mention this, but Russia is now striking wind turbines. This was in, I think, near Kramatorsk. But the Russians are now flying drones to destroy wind turbines. They think they're going to win this war by blowing up kindergartens and wind turbines. Let's move on to the politics. I know everyone's going to love this. Trump sanctioned Russia over his frustration with Vladimir Putin. This is what the White House is saying, and this is why everyone should be very cautious about the actions of Donald Trump. Trump is not saying I'm sanctioning Russia because I want Ukraine to win or I want Russia to lose. Trump is taking this personally. He was mad, so he decided to put sanctions on Russia. Trump says, I'm not going to be wasting my time. Trump rules out Putin meeting without Ukraine peace progress. Trump at least wants a ceasefire. So this is what he said, and his language matters because he is telegraphing to us what he actually thinks and feels.
What will Russia have to do for you to reschedule your meeting with Putin?
We have to know that we're going to make a deal. I'm not going to be wasting my time. I've always had a great relationship with Vladimir Putin, but this has been very disappointing. I thought this would have gone long before peace in the Middle East. I mean, we have Azerbaijan and Armenia. That was very tough. In fact, Putin told me on...
So he's going to start talking about his other made-up peace deals, but Trump keeps saying this should have been over by now. And when he's...
We do not condone the message of this man, Mr. Trump. We love you, sir. We know you're not making it up. We know they're real peace deals.
Says that he doesn't care how it ended. He just wanted it to be over by now. The Russians were promising MAGA when Trump came into office in January. Cut off all military aid, shut down Voice of America and Radio Free Europe, and USAID, which was benefiting Ukraine. If the United States just completely abandons Ukraine, the Russian military will overtake and conquer Ukraine in like 3 to 6 months. So what Trump is most annoyed at is the incompetence of Vladimir Putin and the Russian military. He doesn't care about Ukraine. He's pissed off. 10 months into his presidency, he's still getting questions every single day. Why aren't you doing anything? You said you could end this war in 24 hours. So for Trump, he's disappointed in the Russians. He really respected Putin. He thought the Russian military and the Russian economy was very mighty. He believed Russian propaganda. So after 10 months of stalling, 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks, he finally got frustrated by being humiliated by the incompetence of the Russian military, not even being able to take the entirety of the Donbass region. So what is Putin's reaction to all this? Putin says U.S. sanctions serious, but won't significantly hit the economy.
You'll get a kick out of this.
Russia is lying. And Russia is lying because as soon as the Treasury Secretary announced the sanctions, Putin made this guy get on a plane, and fly to New York City. This is Dmitriev. I think his first name is Kirill. And this is him in New York City talking to anyone who's willing to talk to him to try and get these sanctions reversed. This is what Putin's envoy is saying. We see that it is Ukraine that is dragging out the negotiations, that it is Ukraine that does not want to resolve the problems, the accumulated issues that need to be addressed. And so we will also convey to our American colleagues that Ukraine, unfortunately, is disrupting the necessary dialogue, and it is disrupting it at the request of the British, at the request of the Europeans who want the conflict to continue. The Russians are trying to argue that the reason why Russia cannot agree to Trump's ceasefire offer along the current front lines is because of Ukraine, because of Britain, because of the Europeans. It's everyone else's fault except Russia, why Russia cannot agree to a ceasefire today. This argument is so stupid, Donald Trump doesn't even believe it anymore. And these people are just weird. So when this Kirill guy showed up in New York City, he showed up with chocolate. Move over love hearts. Chocolates presented to Trump officials from Russia are emblazoned with Putin rants like, it's better to hit first. This is the actual box of chocolates that Russia's diplomats showed up to and started handing out to Trump officials. It's got Putin's face on it, and this is what the sayings are inside the box. Russia is a country that is not afraid of anything. The fewer teeth you have, the more you love porridge. Russia is not angry. Russia is concentrating. Russia's borders never end. I personally would not ingest anything that was produced by the Russian government. This seems like a trap, but is this supposed to like win people over? Let's check in with Kremlin State TV.
Fucking
This is
weird,
the
right?
latest clip from Russian Media
yeah, well,
Monitor.
they're all weirdos. Those people, like Trump does weird ass shit like that too.
Mm-hmm.
Which I love, and I think is cool.
Yeah, weird in a
and
good way.
impressive. Which I think, yeah, we're weird in a good way, Mr. Trump, in a way that makes me love you, and I have a statue of you in my closet.
Vladimir Solovyov is apoplectic about the new sanctions. This is a word I don't even know. Apparently, this means overcome with anger, extremely indignant. So Solovyov's not happy about Trump sanctioning Rosneft and Lukoil. Let's check in and see what he's saying. They've struck us with all the might they have. This isn't military might, because in this regard, they don't surpass us in any way. It's their economic might. I think we should move on to a harsh escalation. Trump developed an opinion that he can pressure us, and nothing will be done in response. For this, we should clearly understand what kind of retaliatory measures can we undertake, not to hurt them, but to achieve the goals set by our Supreme Commander-in-Chief. In my opinion, we should move on from planned exercises to the unannounced use of tactical nuclear weapons, carrying out strikes on a number of targets that will be determined by the military to radically change the course of the war. Then I think we should freeze relations, we should recall our ambassador from the United States, and we should recall our ambassador from Great Britain. Trump canceled the meeting and said it will happen later. Why is Trump the one to determine this? Why is Trump saying, I want it or I don't want it? What happened several days after I want a meeting that went to no, there won't be a meeting? We can't build relations this way. We're not interested in neurotic, hysterical US politics. There was no meeting because nothing was going to be announced. Nothing was going to be signed. Russia was going to agree to nothing and do nothing different. So this is a good thing. U.S. is reportedly readying new sanctions as Russia stalls on Ukraine peace talks. The next round of sanctions that potentially Trump might announce will be on Russia's banking sector. If Trump was willing to go for the number one and number two oil companies, which Joe Biden was never willing to do, then perhaps, yes, the United States might sanction Russia's largest banks and completely cripple them overnight. This is what we want. This is what we're hoping for. But there's a problem. White House says Trump-Putin meeting not completely off the table. Trump is not committed to defeating Russia. Trump is not 100% supporting Ukraine. He still wants to do business with Putin and the Russians. And these sanctions are still just a negotiation tactic to get something from Putin, something from the Russians that looks like a win to Trump and his supporters. So this is a very fragile period. This is all good news, but Trump can undo it. He can taco out and just say sanctions are canceled. I hope not. Here's Jessica Berlin. U.S. sanctions against Russian oil are good news, but enjoy with caution. Trump didn't do it out of some new strategic enlightenment or solidarity with Ukraine. He did it because Putin pissed him off and made him look bad. The Trump pendulum will keep swinging back and forth. We're so close to getting these two guys to break up. This is the bromance from hell. We do not want these two men collaborating and coordinating on future projects. So it is very important that these sanctions stick and somebody reaches Trump and escalates. We need escalation in sanctions, in deliveries, in sales, whatever, so that Putin can't justify to his own people another meeting, another pointless, stupid, vanity meeting. All right, let's get to the good news. One Piece, UK to build pilot batch of Octopus interceptor drones under a joint project with Ukraine. The first 1,000 drones will be manufactured in Britain before expanding production to meet Ukraine's battlefield needs. Zelensky went to the UK. There's going to be like a coalition of the willing meeting tomorrow. Here's General Zaluzny right there. And this is a Octopus interceptor drone. I'm guessing it's called that because it has 8 fins. But the United Kingdom is going to produce 1,000 of these. They're going to scale up production, do some testing, and then just start mass producing as many as they can for delivery to Ukraine. These are needed on the battlefield to take down surveillance drones as well as shooting down Shaheeds.
There you go.
So
I didn't see this
happen.
yet. Yeah, that's so now
Final
Britain's
video I
getting
have for you is just
game
a
too.
cute Ukrainian child singing her own national anthem.
Ще не вмерла України, ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запанує небо, браття, у своїй стороні. Душу діло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.
That's a very pretty dress. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, Keep defending the truth. Keep defending democracy. Welcome.
Okay. So that was Jake Broe, Broe. I love the guy. Been with him since what it seems like the beginning, and now he's really blowing up. And he's on Trump and the whole administration's shit list. They're tweeting at him and calling him all kinds
About
of
him?
names. Oh yeah. So he blew up, and I don't know.
Man, Trump is such a pussy. He's such an insecure pussy.
That is what people who are wrong often say. Yeah, I know, dude. It's like the shit couldn't be more obvious, you know. And it's like I'm often like, one part of me is totally baffled that people buy it, and another part of me goes, all right, like, there's a time when I didn't understand any of this either, and I was just kind of like going with something, like, I don't know, like a feeling or a delusion or some shit. I don't know. I'm not making excuses, but
here's me getting into my dualistic and my cynical self.
okay.
Man, I can understand 2016. Like, I can understand, because I even remember when he first, like, in the Republican primary, when he was like telling all the Republican candidates essentially, like, you guys suck and you're all corrupt. I was like, cool.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, kind of quickly figured it out. So I can understand why someone would in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you did it 3 times, I'm like, and not in saying like, oh, you needed to do the opposite, vote for the Democrat, but like, I just like I don't get it. Like, I get it. I can obviously get to the place where I can get it, but for me, it's like, and as someone who used to think conservatively,
Mm-hmm.
this guy's like the opposite of what that was. Like, when in terms of like being like having integrity and like personal responsibility and like being a man, this guy cries all the time, and he's supposed to be like Mr. Macho, right? He's supposed that's the archetype. He's like the tough guy. Like, oh yeah, Trump, fuck your feelings. Oh, Trump. Like, he is the biggest pussy
They're cry bullies.
I have ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Like, people would, if you went to high school with me and someone acted like that in high school, people would hate them. People would bully him.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, yeah.
Yeah, man.
As my cynical self come up, but obviously, then I can step into Mr. Compassionate and like, yes, I understand. I understand how like,
yeah.
but also some point it's like, I get frustrated with people who kind of pretend like it was something else. Like, well, I didn't vote for this. I didn't vote for this. I'm like, he literally told you.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually for me, it comes to a point of like, you understand, like, if you look at this guy's history from when he was in business, he conned and scammed and lied and conned and scammed. He always cons and scams and lies. And after a while, when does your self-respect kick in of like, hey, this guy's lying to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being lied to.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm like,
that's why it has to be.
And that's why I get frustrated with people, because I'm like, I want you to respect yourself. Like, stop allowing this person to con you and mislead you. Like, have more self-respect.
Going back to our first episode, right? We talked about what's going on in the comedy world and how, there was a large contingent of them that fell for this and supported it and may have been the reason for it, coming to fruition. And, we talked about healthy humiliation, right? The respect is in that. The respect is when somebody like meets that, is humiliated, and then develops the self-respect from somebody who can work through something like that, and it's why it's a bad idea if you're a parent if your kid leaves his homework at home, not to bring that homework to school. That's what they say. That kid needs to feel humiliated. Kid needs to feel like they screwed up. Right. And thankfully it's not a life or death situation. So they'll survive it, And so it's like, this is a big part of what makes the world go round, is the avoidance of this humiliation, bringing us into a place of like willful delusion, right? You don't want to face it. Don't know how to digest it. You know, it's like going from a meat-based diet to an all plant-based diet. You know, people try it for like a moment and then they bail, right? Because they don't know how to do it and they don't know how to let their system, you know, change into that new kind of environment. You know, it's like it's a whole different way of living when you can have that kind of self-respect to let yourself be humiliated, right? So a lot of people don't even put those two pieces together. Like, how does that work? It's like, it's the same thing. It's the same fucking thing, man.
It's coming together for me there too. I like that.
It is, man. So, you know, tree of life back here. We're talking about HUD and NETSOC territory, the incarnation into the personal self. Well, if you don't have a place for all of yourself, some part of you knows you're leaving something out. And that's going to create a sense of weakness, worthlessness, paranoia, because you're always going to feel like someone's going to find out that you're a loser at some point. But if the fact is, if you meet all the times that you were a loser, well, you're a winner. You know, that's what makes a winner.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, a lot of people, they avoid that your whole life. So all the self-respect you want is on the other side of humiliation, you know, and eat your veggies, you know,
Eat your
see for what it
veggies.
is. Eat your veggies and you can make them taste good if you know how to cook them right. Oh, baby. What's that look like? Looks like comedy. Looks like having safe people around you that you can make fun of yourself with like a self-deprecating humor that doesn't become poison, right? Not take yourself so seriously, because the only reason why you are is because you feel so humiliated inside and you're avoiding it. So the reason why you're so serious, you know, you need to be light and spacious, right? Have the ability to make fun of yourself and say, yep, I'm going to eat it from time to time. And I know how to eat all that up too, baby. Makes me, as my daughter says, makes me healthy and strong. She goes, hands right. She doesn't flex yet. She just goes straight up. Healthy and strong. Healthy and strong. You know, I'm like, hell yeah. You know,
hell yeah.
Drank all my water, healthy and strong. Yeah. You know, but that's what it is, man. We need to understand what the nourishment is in this stuff, how to be a whole human being, because this fracture that we have inside ourselves and our consciousness, as we say in non-dual speak, how we split ourselves to avoid this suffering, right? That it manifests out in the world and the very splits that we're talking about here. And, you know, you want to, what Jason once wrote an article called Value War. It was a provocative essay, but in it, if I was to summarize, he would say, you got to catch the little schmoos before they become big schmoos, right? You got to be humiliated day by day with these little things that you screw up on. Be conscious of it. Eat that up. Get stronger so that you don't act out at some point these enormous conflicts that come from, you know, a life of avoidance and not being able to be with the little stuff, so that you can, how the hell are you going to be with the big stuff if you can't be with the little stuff? You know what I'm saying? So eat your veggies.
Eat your veggies.
I was gonna say, it felt like the video went a little long, but I wanted to get to that last part where the kid was singing. I knew that was on there because I didn't let myself listen to it yet, and I was getting emotional because I'm like, when we look back, you know, that'll be the anthem of the tip of the spear that saved democracy against the evil empire. Here it is. We're watching it like it's a fucking
Or it
TV
won't.
show.
Or it won't.
No, it will. It will. Russia's already lost the war. That's why I wanted to show that video, because people will see that this was the time that they lost, and the politics are swinging that way too. And yeah, Trump can change his mind, and he very well might, and so on. But they've already lost. And when you bring in some of the other pieces and some of the videos that we're going to look at in different demographics, you know, geopolitics, aging populations, you know, the upcoming war between China and Taiwan, and how U.S. is abandoning them. It's just there's so much on the world stage right now that is like set for, you know, decades and weeks kind of consciousness.
So the guy we watched in our last live stream, Shadid King Bolson.
Oh, he's dead now. Shot and dead.
He's dead.
Yeah, that's it. He's gone.
I call him Malcolm Y.
Is that you? Did you make that up?
Yeah, I call him Malcolm Y because
he talks like Malcolm X too.
I know. He's like, definitely inspired by him.
Yeah,
you can definitely feel. Yeah, Malcolm Y. He talks. He's saying that in his perspective, and again, he's very hypercritical of the West, whatever, you know. And he says this is all the United States slowly unraveling itself and withdrawing from the world stage. So things like getting out of Taiwan,
Mm-hmm.
getting out of Ukraine, those types of things, he says, is them positioning to going from a uni-world power to just a regional power,
Mm-hmm.
the United States,
Mm-hmm.
which I find interesting. And again, I don't know how true this is, but for my thinking, it aligns with, them talking about Greenland, right? And so here's what people, this is the cleverness of Trump, right? He'll say that outlandish shit like, oh, we're going to take Greenland, right? And everyone's like, are you insane? Like, that's not happening. But what it does is it begins to, what they set the Overton window. So it now puts, the United States taking Greenland, it's now in the public consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
right? This idea of what if the United States controlled Greenland? And then that's why he started talking about Canada too.
Panama.
Canada.
No, I'm saying and Panama. I'm adding
And Panama.
to it.
Yeah. And Panama.
Mhm.
And now,
he's looking for any pretext. Yeah.
Venezuela, Mexico, the
Mhm.
cartel, right?
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Venezuela yet. Oh my God,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
We're preparing for a ground invasion right now.
Now.
We've already had CIA in there. We drive flying by with B-1 bombers, B-52s. Yeah, it's like this, it's fucking insane. I was on a road trip to Ohio all weekend for a Divine Movement event, and like Gina was DJing. So we had 10 hours in the car. After my first 2 hours of deep spiritual revelation, I started talking about the military. That seems to be my yeah. I'm like, oh my God, my grandpa's so with me and the wasps. And then I'm like, pause. We just moved an aircraft carrier to the coast of Venezuela. We just shot our 9th boat. Probably civilians.
Yeah. We took a hard turn going from you talking about spirit, talking to animals, and then we're like, anyway, Ukraine.
This is my rhythm. This is literally what I do.
Me too, dude. Me too.
I
try to be aware of not being a joy kill for people sometimes, because sometimes I'll just be like, oh, this reminds me of this horrendous video I just watched of a child getting their head blown off.
Dude, I can't believe you watch that stuff. That is not good.
Here's what I take.
I feel like if you've seen it once, that's enough.
Listen, I'm gonna say, and I'm very serious about this. Like, what's happening in Palestine is inexcusable, regardless of, like, it is beyond the whatever Hamas, like, there's no excuse for what has been being done to civilians. It's collective punishment to the absolute worst degree. And nobody's doing anything. It's just happening. And for me, at the very least, I can be witness to these people's lives, and I will witness what has happened to them. And they will not just be these people that ever get born into a horrible situation under occupation and find themselves on the end of this, where there's nothing they can do. And part of me, that's like in a spiritual way, like, no, I can at least bear witness.
I get it.
And if that's all I can do,
I get it. It's one of those things where you want to make sure that you don't curdle like bad milk. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm learning to keep my balance with it.
'Cause the kids stuff, right? I have a 3-year-old now, and she's about to turn 3. And I think about how many tens of thousands, any war, when they get kidnapped and they're re-educated, and it's like, I feel that rage, like that lust for vengeance. And I think, like, this is going to take a while, because I think I'm pretty far along the path at this point in terms of nonviolence, you know. But I was put in a position a few months ago where I had to kick someone's ass, you know, and that doesn't even touch on the level of rage that I feel when we talk about that kind of stuff. You know, Russia taking tens of thousands of kids, stuff going on, Israel, Palestine, Hamas. Man, it's I don't know. It's a question I'm asking myself actually every day now. You know, there was a time I used to feel this way about people who, I'd say about a third of my healing practice over the years, if not more, has been from children who are sexually assaulted in one way or another. You know, and there have been times when my life was good enough where like I didn't want any more of anything and I had a roof over my head and I thought, you know, I could go hunting, you know, and go Batman it up a little bit, work outside the system,
Vigilante. Yep.
find my way, you know, into the chat rooms and do a fucked up thing here or there to win people's favor. And then just kind of sweep up some of the area a little bit, you know, something I seriously considered for a long time. And so I think about that, like it's that age old thing. If I could create a time machine, go back in time and kill Hitler, you know, would that make a difference? Would somebody worse come into power, right? And I think about that with all kinds of nasty people, you know, like, you know, and I remember in philosophy class in college, those are the only college classes I actually engaged in, was just like, you know, exploring things like the death penalty. Was a nuclear bomb a good idea? You know, all these kinds of things. And I think it's really worthwhile to reflect on that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot to it. And at the same time, I think, you know, I'm more and more drawn to more of like what you just brought forward there with bearing witness, where there's something about like the consciousness of the heart that I think you and I both like to rock with. You know, there's some really smart people out there that need to do really smart people things. And then there's people that have consciousness of the heart. Some people have both, right? I'm more of a heart, you are more of a heart-centered guy. Not saying either of us are stupid by any sense, but we're not smart like some people are. And
Yeah, I consider. Yeah. I consider myself like a, I don't know. I'm like a redneck intellect.
yeah, it's not about you, right? Right.
Yeah, and it's just who I am. Like I don't have the best vocabulary. Like I can tap into it, but I'm not like writing dissertations and speeches. I kind of just like off the cuff. Like, you know, it's kind of like this stand-up comedy-esque vibe where you're not a philosopher, but you're just somebody who like talks about it.
And I think, you know, people who are more heart-centered, we're informed differently than who other people are that have other strengths, right? And neither is better or worse, but there's a but there. But it's only the heart that can hold everything, right? It's the heart that resolves conflict and moves us out of a dualistic mindset of me and them and starts to see the humanity in all these things. And I think why you're attracted at looking at things like what genocide is made of, the nature of genocide, and how you don't want to just pin it on one thing or the other, right? You want to look at the nature of things and then start to look at like the human relationship to it and the intelligence and all this stuff, right? Because I think when you can go to the rock bottom of reality, right, which is always consciousness in the mind and how we're relating to it and how the lens with which we are viewing things changes what we see moment to moment. You know, case in point, in a relationship, I could be like, oh my God, I love you so much. And then a moment later, I'm like, I got to get out of this, you know, and then I move back to the love part. And I'm like, oh, thank God I hung in there. That was crazy. That was really believable a moment ago, you know, and it's like the rhythm, you know, and being able to become self-aware enough that we can actually start to look at the lens. To me, that's what's most important, you know? So what do you want to do, man?
Yeah.
Good. We're in a pretty good while. You want to pause here?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, before we end it, let me share, because we hadn't had a chance to talk. I was driving a lot, good 30 hours in the car this weekend. And I I was thinking, there's a lot of things I want to do for the Third Thing Network. Gina was giving me some caution, like, hey, if you're going to do this thing with Zach, hang in there. Which, by the way, everybody seems to love the name "Hang in There" and the whole
Cool.
concept behind it, whatever.
Cool.
And we're going to bring that guy Mike in, who's really talented, heart-centered guy too, like really smart guy, but he's also really smart behind the scenes when it comes to, like, he runs the Divine Movement events, and now he does all the back end stuff for tons of big festivals and music and lighting, and he just knows everything, right? So I got a chance to just be with him all Saturday, and he and I got a chance to sit down together through the night, Saturday night, like late into the night, like just like hanging, sharing some food, some drinks, just getting to know each other. And he was like, you should call everything "Hang in There." Like the whole thing should be "Hang in There." And like, we kept talking because like we'd have different language for, different people we were analyzing. And we were just like, kind of talking about Gina half the time, like what you thought, what I thought. And we realized like we're saying the same thing, just differently, And he kept being like, right, just got to hang in there, And I'm like, that's right. I'm like, that's right, man. That's right. And so I think there's something about that can catch on. But, I also, anyway, I want to grow the network, right? The Third Thing Network. And I want this channel to have Hang in There be a big part of it. And I just wanted to, just open people's hearts and minds to other possibilities, other fun ways of doing things, other ways to bring this work forward. What is the work? Who Zach is, who I am, the healing work we're both doing in our own ways, and so on. Bring that forward and just try to help out the best we can. And I'm not opposed to even like setting up some video games, doing longer hangouts where we just want to hang,
Totally. That'd be sick.
There's a cool new game coming out called Arc Raiders. You see this at all?
No.
So the idea is that AI went out of control.
No. Oh no.
Losing each other.
You froze. Here, you froze.
All right,
you
I'm back.
froze.
So
You're back. So Arc Raiders.
Yeah, so Arc Raiders, it's a game about AI going out of control and basically wiping humanity off the planet, right? And so humanity has to go underground, right? And so the raiders are the ones who are brave enough to go above ground to get supplies, but there's drones everywhere. It's like Skynet kind of thing. And so you have to worry about other humans and you have to worry about the drones. And I thought, this is another, some of my favorite YouTube channels are guys who are like a nuclear physicist that I love, really smart, charismatic guy. He's a science communicator. Oh, by the way, that we have to do Professor Dave in the next one. Like we do, it's like a science communicator,
Okay.
That's, and so, this is a nuclear physicist who's a science communicator, and he'll just play video games and talk about whether or not the stuff in the video game is actually possible in real life, and it's just another way to share what he knows, and it's a cool little hangout, and I love that platform, right? I love this whole streaming thing that's going on in the world, being able, and how easy it is to pull stuff up and talk about it. So I imagine some of these shows we might get a little bit more prepared for when we need to, but right now I'm loving the vibe, just showing up, hanging out, seeing if anybody likes it, comment. Do we have any comments yet? I've been afraid to check.
Gina said a couple things.
Oh, wait, for this episode or the past ones? Oh, Gina's been watching? Gina's watching.
Watching at the beginning.
I always feel like my mom's watching when Gina's watching. I'm like, oh God. Oh God.
I think I have to the second stream. I'm not sure if this automatically uploads as a video onto the channel or I have to download it and upload it separately. Here, I'm just gonna look.
Could be a question for Mike. We're gathering our team,
Yeah.
Here's the other thing I want to do. We did our first trial run of doing a Divine Movement event. And for those of you that don't know, the Divine Movement was something that Gina Turner and Gina's my fiance, she's a DJ and a yoga instructor and so on. And we met, many years ago when I was first on fire on this path, wanting to wake up the world, and she was getting into all this stuff. We started doing yoga together. She invited me. She had an event. She was doing a DJ event in Miami, like on a rooftop kind of thing, whatever. And she's like, yo, just come with me. You like do numerology or like read cards or something. Let me see what you do. And when we did it, there was a point when nobody was on the dance floor. Everybody was in line waiting to see me, and we looked at each other and like we joking around about it. Right. And we looked at each other and we're like, we might have something here, and after a moment, we called it the Divine Movement. And then we got in at that early wave right before wellness had become a thing at festivals, right? It was a missing piece. And this was right as everything started. It was just pure damn luck, you know? And so we ended up getting in all these major festivals, you know, like, and I started giving presentations in front of hundreds of people, or like, you know, Holy Ship was what, 5,000 people there. And we do these events for a lot of people. And you started doing all these festivals around the world. And so Divine Movement was born. And so since we had a kid and all this other stuff, we couldn't do as many traveling, but now we can start to bring the family along for the ride. And this was our first trial run, right? Instead of flying, we're like, let's do a family road trip. So we drove 10 hours to Cincinnati, and then we did a Columbus, Ohio. And Gina's also DJing at Jets games. She's a big Jets fan, so she's doing a lot of tailgates and stuff. So it's like we're trying to bring all this into different areas. And whole point of that was to share that, you know, we live streamed a couple stuff there. It didn't go great, but we worked out all the kinks, right? This is all, we're just starting out. And my philosophy is always like, I like to do everything out in the open. I don't care if it doesn't look super professional at first. You're going to see how we progress, how we put it together, and then it becomes a smooth running machine. So, you know, I'm thinking, you know, this hang in there piece, we're going to have news healing going. We're going to have Divine Movement events live streamed. So you have yoga, meditation, teachings, all kinds of stuff. From there, we can build out Patreon for other things that we want to do and people that really want to support us, and let this be, you know, something that supports everyone, you know, create a community around this. And, you know, we already have one, which is cool, you know, but more, you know, and so anyway, I just wanted to share all that and get that out on the airwaves so people who are still with us right now can get an idea of what we're building here. And all the pieces are in place. We have all the right people, you know, it's wonderful.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm pumped for it.
Thanks, man. Thanks for coming along for the ride. And man, we're going to be doing this 4-year training together. You know, you're going to see if we're still doing this in 4 years, we're going to be different, man.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I'm excited.
So, okay, brother.
Yeah. And if anybody out there is being affected by the stoppage of food stamps this coming month, findhelp.org to find resources in your area. Findhelp.org.
And actually, we're going to be Gina's rolling out some stuff for that too in our local community. And we're going to make that a little bit larger too. So we might do something here on the network that has to do with that as well. So cool. Excellent.
And if anybody, you know, wants to do any therapeutic emotional support healing work, you can get me for cheaper than Tim.
That's for sure. I'm raising my prices, actually. I just raised them.
zwcampo@gmail.com.
Yeah. Go to Zach. He's awesome.
All right. I just put out my info out there. So I'm already on a list, whatever. All right. See you later, everybody.
All right, man. Love you. Love you all.
Love you.
Peace.